right, without any further ado, please make a nice, loud welcome for Mr. J. Abraham.
My ego loves this, but they're running late and I have to consolidate. And I already got like 45 seconds I've lost. So for those of you who came to Florida when I got ill, I heartfelt apologize. And I want to make it up to you. I don't normally do PowerPoints. I created this killer PowerPoint, which I will probably not get all the way through, but I think it will profoundly impact every one of you, no matter what you do or you're going to do, and whatever your significant others do. So rather than screw around, I'm going to get into it as much as I can, and I think at a certain critical point, JT is going to interrupt me and ask me questions. And I have a couple of voice problems, so occasionally I'll go and do a little spray, so please, apologies. Everything I'm all about is seeing connections, seeing things that nobody else sees. Simple, obvious solutions, possibilities, etc. So I stayed up all last night, literally. It was only done about, so it's got typos, I apologize. I don't do PowerPoints. It was done literally about a half hour before I got in my car. So we're going to talk about Abraham 101, and the concept is simple. It's getting any business going and growing, and it's all about simply outthinking, out marketing, out selling, out strategizing, out servicing, outperforming the competition. Okay. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about what I do great. I'll tell you what I do terrible, almost everything. What I do great is I think differently than everybody else. Why, how? Good news, my accidental background, I was a job transient. I got involved in 20 or 30 industries and realized people in one industry didn't have a clue, not businesses, industries, how people in another industry thought, their business model, their strategy, the way they attracted the market, everything about it. I was able to borrow essences from one industry, combine them into hybrids, and use them in industries that had never been introduced to them, and my clients or my partners or the businesses I helped skyrocketed, and thus did my reputation. So I'm going to teach you today as much as I can for as long as I can about thinking differently. Start with a quote, Socrates quote, "A life unexamined is a life not worth living." J. Abraham quote, "A business that is not constantly re-examined is a business that is not worth owning." Hi, Doug. Not worth owning. Okay, so everything we're going to talk about today is seeing correlations, implications, variations, permutations, patterns, and then knowing and learning what do they mean? Understanding, in essence, the true business meaning of business life. My wife said, "Don't talk too fast." Instead of saying, "I love you," she goes, "Don't talk too fast." Okay. You guys are all investors, so I contextualize this for you. There's only one reason in my mind and heart to own and keep running a business from a pure investment or even a gratification or fulfillment standpoint. You know what it is? Because it's a better return on your time, effort, opportunity, cost, asset creation, allocation, wealth creation than your next best opportunity, including the next best use of your enthusiasm, your passion, your time. I got your emails. I just said the words really, I apologize. Okay, the reality is that most businesses don't beat the market. Most businesses underperform their capabilities. Most businesses limit and restrict their performance, their results. Most businesses are stuck. My voice dropped too much. Are stuck, and they don't even know it. If your business was a mutual fund, you guys are all investors, would you buy it? If you had 3, 4 investments in your business, let's call them activities, let's call them revenue generators, and one was generating 5%, one was generating 15, and one was generating 25. Would you put the same allocation in all of them? You would? You would, Mike? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. Most people don't even know how the performance elements of their business are even delivering. They don't know what kind of return they're getting. They don't know what they're getting on their actions. They don't know what they're getting on their resources. They don't know what they're getting on their opportunities, opportunity costs. They don't know what they're getting on their efforts, their investments, tangible, intangible. An investment can mean access to a market, investment in personnel, human capital, the actions they're taking and making. So why own a business if you're not committed to maximizing all? By the way, I know all this, but I haven't articulated it in this manner, so I am looking at my notes. I apologize. They came from my head. If you're not committed to maximizing all the impact points, the leverage, income, and success, performance enhancement, I know it's a mouthful, elements it offers. Most businesses, by the way, have 25 to 50 leverage points in them that no one even knows how to look at, how to identify, how to quantify. How can you know how it's performing? There are 5 ways to create more business wealth today. Simple. Most of what I'm going to talk about, they're so damn obvious, it's embarrassing, but I want to hammer it in. Number 1, you multiply your current income. Duh. 2, you create more predictable, ever-multiplying future income with predictable sources, so it's not episodic, it's not erratic, it's not occasional, it's not static. 3, you ethically exploit windfall income opportunities internally, externally, things like reactivating clients, generating referrals in a systematic way, taking advantage of profiles of buyers that you never thought that maybe you have a certain category or a certain area of business, doctors, or a certain usage that exists within your database and you never looked at it. Number 4, achieve monster-sized psychic emotional income. Boy, if you're not enjoying yourself, if you're not really blown away by what you're doing and you're going to spend the rest of your life doing it, is there something wrong with that picture? I just came from Dallas. You'll notice I don't stop. I go right on to the next thought. I just came from Dallas where I talked to, I don't know, 400 or 500 real estate agents. And we were talking about the rest of their life. And that if the strategy they were following wasn't producing the results they wanted, including the satisfaction they wanted, including the respect they wanted, including the relevancy they wanted, including the sellable business they wanted, and they kept doing it, what would they possibly imagine would change? You got a long time, which is the rest of your life. I'm in your life 52.38 more minutes, and then whatever time JT allocates, I'll be mad because I'm not wearing his tie, so probably a few minutes, but you're gonna live in your business life for the rest of life. This is my serious side today. Next, finally, is position the damn business for future sale at the maximum value, worth, and terms that you possibly can. It's all obvious. Note, most of you, now some of you might run very large businesses, so I exempt you. Most small, medium businesses never sell. They either close them, they go bankrupt, they give them to somebody. A few that do sell, they sell for a very low multiple. They normally have to carry the paper. It can be an earn out. Half the time, they never earn the amount of money, and a portion of the time, they have to take it back. So it's not a very good outcome, and that's what you're playing for the rest of your life. Think about it. Okay, so now I've set the stage, hopefully, incensed you, excited you, provoked you to think differently. So now here's another quote. It's a really interesting one from a professor at Cornell, and this doesn't apply to you, so I'm not criticizing you at 51-24 left, so I don't want you to throw eggs and tomatoes, but we're talking about your competitors. He says, most incompetent people in business don't even know they are incompetent. This doesn't mean you think your competition, because the skills needed for competency are the same skills required to recognize it. So most incompetent business owners and startups are blissfully self-assured or scared you know what, play acting on the treadmill, going through life totally oblivious to all the illogical things they're doing, totally unaware of the pathetic yield they're accepting. I drove down, anybody from Los Angeles area? I live in Palos Verdes. My beach house is in Capistrano Beach. I drove down from PV on PCH, and I want to talk fast because of 50 minutes now. And I'm looking at business after business after business. The signs are crappy. The people are accepting a fraction of the yield. I'm thinking, why would you dedicate the majority of your life, the opportunity, the yield, the creation of your wealth instrument to something that you have so much more control of and accept reactive and underperforming yield, which is what most of these companies do. I'm sure you don't, and I'm sure you won't when you see the rest of this or as much as they get through. So we're talking incompetency. Their incompetency robs them of the ability to realize they are reaching erroneous conclusions about almost everything they do and making assumption-based actions based on theoretical perception. Like if I run social media, everything's going to work. If I run an ad, even if it's the wrong ad, the wrong proposition, the wrong offer, the wrong call to action, everything will be okay. If I wait around and just serve people well, people will come automatically, and I'll get referrals without having a system to generate them. They don't carefully examine, evaluate, and control what's going on. Example, and this is funny. Think about this. These are just fun stories. Ice cream was created something like, 2000 BC, but it took 3,900 years for some brilliant person to figure out the ice cream cone. When whatever you believe, religious or Darwinism, animals were on this earth, got to talk slower, before mankind. Wheat, grain was here pretty early. Took 2,600 years for someone to figure out how to make a sandwich. This is my favorite one. Somebody figured out the flush toilet in 1775, but toilet paper didn't come along until 1857. I'll never forget when internet first started, people would come to me and go, "Hey, Jay, I get 25,000 visitors and 0.5% response. How can I get 40,000 visitors?" And I'd look at them and say, that's so much harder than getting the 1/2 to be 1. But people's fixated on the wrong thing. Anybody make a phone call ever and get a voicemail and be shocked? The statistical probability is 90% of the calls you're going to make are going to get a voicemail. But most people don't have a strategy expecting to get a voicemail. We always plan absolutely what we're going to say because we're shocked if we get a live person. Think about it. Referrals and advertising. How many people in this room are in any business whatsoever where 20 to 100% emanates from referrals or word of mouth? Stand up. Stand up. Okay, well, first of all, this is one of those trick questions. If you're not standing up, you must not have a very good reputation because people aren't referring. But if you are standing up, I'm going to just ask you, what's the percentage in rough dollars that come from referrals or word of mouth, sir? Rough percentage dollars? 100%. Okay, I was pointing to him bouncing off of you. It's all right. 100% the man there. How much is it in dollars? Roughly. How much? 10,000 yourself? Sir, I'm now pointing to you. 45 a month. 4,500 a month. I'm just jumping. You, sir. 20,000 a month. You, ma'am. 5,000 a month, year? Okay. Sir in the back. You. 78%, how much in dollars roughly? 3 or 4 million. Okay. Remain standing if you have in place one systematic, strategic referral generating system that you apply all the time, systematically, continuously to generate those more referrals. Stay standing. Okay. A couple of you do. Remain standing if you have at least 2 or more. You're pretty good, woman in the red. Stay standing if you have 3 or more referral generating systems that are strategically applied. Okay, I don't have a lot of time, but if I were doing, you can all sit now, thank you. If I were doing what I normally do, I would make the point, there's something wrong with that picture when the same people who say that 20, 30% of my business comes from referrals invest or waste money on advertising, on promotion, on trade shows, on all that stuff, when in fact, a referral-generated buyer buys quicker, negotiates less, buys larger units, buys more often, buys more things, refers more people, is more profitable, costs nothing, and yet we spend all our time on external marketing. What's wrong with that picture? You don't have to answer. You only have to think. There's a lot of illogic that drives a lot of our business decisions and shouldn't. Leads versus conversion. I was involved in generating 6 million leads one year. And people don't realize all leads aren't created equal. Different sources convert differently, different propositions convert differently, different product starts convert differently. If you don't analyze all that and you treat them all like they're the same, you're wasting such opportunity and you're either spending too much or too little. Does this all start to make sense? Because I'm going rapidly and I'm taking a tact I've never talked about from this angle before. So I'm as surprised as you if it works. Okay, headline, ad, or equivalent. Most people run ads, don't test headlines. We've tested headlines, and I'll tell stories a little later, time allowing, where one headline change increased the response. No other body copy. And I'm talking about an ad can be magazine, an ad can be radio, ad can be TV, ad can be online, ad can be next to Facebook, ad can be your website, ad can be the subject line of an email, ad can be the equivalent of your text. Changing that and having what the recipient finds valuable and evokes response can produce up to 21 times different result. Same thing, an ad is also the opening lines of what you say when you greet somebody at your store, when you talk to them on the phone, when you greet them at a trade show. We've tested 33 different ways of greeting people at a retail store and found one-way tripled closures. Tripled. Same amount of volume, one-way tripled, and I'm going to tell you what it is because you want to know, don't you? What do you think it's not? Wow, okay, well, you guys are logical. You're not incompetent. Can I help you is not the winner. The winning ad, this was a big furniture store, 40 million. And what ad brought, the winning phrase at the front door. And what ad brought you into the store today? Because it transferred control. We didn't know it till we tested it. It transferred control of the relationship to us. We could be an advisor. We could be a guidance. Because you'd say, well, the 5-piece Italian bedroom suite for $2,000. Oh, is the rest of your furniture Italian? Is it a new home? Are you replacing? Are you moving in? All of a sudden, you had control of the situation. But had we not tested it, an extra $2 million a month, not counting repeat, not counting referrals, would have been less on the table. Less. My voice is not in sync with my brain. I apologize. Measurement versus non-measurement. I've been taught, I will teach you before 4230 is gone, how to measure, how to quantify, how to analyze, how to know how different impact points in your business are performing and how to challenge yourself to not allow yourself to limit or restrict the yield when so much more is possible. Okay, once these obvious connections are made, you go, oh, why didn't we see it sooner? My job is to make the money connections for you today and teach you how to leverage up this with a lot of examples galore. Okay, leverage, let's talk leverage. Any doctors in the room? Medical doctors? Okay, yes, okay. So you know there's two kinds of cholesterol, good and bad, right? If you have too much of the bad, theoretically, you got no blood flowing, you're dead. If you have enough of the good, it could compensate for that. And if you have none of the bad or low on the bad, then it's even better. There's two kinds of risk. There's the kind of risk where you buy something and you got making payments and you hope that it either earns out for you more than the debt service or appreciates faster than the debt accumulates and the money goes, so you can sell it. And if everything works right, yay, rah, you're a winner. If it goes the other way, you lose your ass. I don't deal in that. I deal in almost infinite upside with no or low downside. And you have that available in 98% of the things you can do with your business, but you don't do now. Okay, I deal in optimization. Optimization is the highest and the best use of your time, your efforts, your activities, your resources, your capital, meaning intellectual capital, financial capital, relational capital, your resources, meaning everything from your processes, procedure, but you can't optimize until and unless you have a context of what the options, the opportunities, and the alternatives that are available to you are. I was blessed. My background is so extensive in different industries, 465, but I also worked with the largest multivariable testing company in the world, the man who created process improvement and optimization, the largest strategic litigation consulting firm in the world, and they all test mercilessly different ways of doing things, different ways of selling, different ways of customer service behind analyzing repurchase, different ways of merchandising at retail, different signage, different ways of stimulating response, re-stimulating. When you look at thousands of tests encompassing billions of dollars, you get excited and humbled. You get excited about what's possible and humbled about how little most people accept from their enterprise. Example of variation, I already talked about that. It's only because of time I'm going to go through it. Okay, I talked about different approaches to the front door. One, tripled closures. Different headline changes. I'll tell you a quick story, and it's an old one, but it's very illustrative. So when gold first became legal, this is when I was younger, it was very expensive. Then it dropped down to about $300. I had a client that was selling gold on a bank finance basis where you put down a third and the bank would finance 2/3. And that was their headline, 2/3 bank financing on gold and silver. Silver was down to about $6 and gold was about down to 300. The purpose of a headline, or it's equivalent to a lot of things. Message you make, first thing they read on your brochure, on your website, subject line, etc. The purpose, signage at a booth at a trade show. The purpose is to provoke the intended audience only to see a benefit advantage worth grasping. It's called direct response. So we were offering 2/3 bank financing on silver and gold, but I didn't think it really conveyed what the benefit was. So we tested, I think, 10 different headlines. One outpulled all the rest 5 times. Same ad, same space, same fixed expense, 500%. More front-end buyers, not counting the upsells and the back end, and I'll tell you what that was. Remember, it was 2/3 bank financing on silver and gold. Gold was $300. My replacement headline was very simple. If gold is selling for $300 an ounce, send us just $100 an ounce, and we'll buy you all the gold you want. Pretty straightforward, but it denominated the benefit. And that alone transformed a mediocre, I mean, it's profitable, but a mediocre ad and company to an obscenely profitable one. Changing banner at booths. I've had companies where they'd have their sign up, Acme Worldwide. Who really cares? Instead of saying, we could make your production capabilities 3 times more productive and save you 2/3 of the downtime. Now, which of the two would you rather be attracted to? That kind of a sign if you had production, or Acme Worldwide? I mean, it's evident when I say it, isn't it? But it isn't until somebody connects the dots. Changing business models. And I tell these interactive, but I got introduced to strategic alliances, endorsements. Past groups have seen me talk about that. We've done billions and billions and billions. The classic one is Colonial Penn, though. Colonial Penn started out as an insurance company. They wanted to sell cold to associations. They were having terrible trouble. They changed their business model. They instead created their own associations, and one of them was called AARP, the American Association of Retired People. They created it for one reason, so they would have a client. And they did billions of dollars when they were struggling before. So just changing one thing can transform your business, but it can't if you don't understand it. Testing, position. Okay, positioning. What's the position of your business? Howard Ruff, and we talk about him again, but I may or may not have to get to it because of time. This guy tested 5 or 7 different positions in the investment newsletter business, and he found that positioning himself as his position was the wealthy had wealth advisors and managers, the poor had the government, everyone in between had nobody, so he was the financial advisor to the beleaguered middle class. And he tried 4 or 5 other positions, but when he hit on that, 10 times his business, 10 times. Many of the magazines, when magazines were at their peak, would find by adding different bonuses, it would double or triple or quadruple response. The insurance field found years ago that different bonuses, along with a request for an appointment or an assessment of how much you're insurable for, they could give you a gold embossed private diary, and that would triple or quadruple the respondents. Point is, you can add a bonus to what you're doing, and frequently, not always, you have to test it, but a test can be done very conservatively. You don't have to change everything you're doing, and you will be profoundly blown away, because more often than not, it will increase the quantity, and frequently it will also increase the quality, and frequently it'll also increase the convertibility, and frequently it'll also increase the size of the order. Isn't that interesting? Credibility proof. The more you can prove your claim or your distinction, and you can prove it with media excerpts, you can prove it with testimonials, you can prove it with contrast, you can prove it with tests, you can prove it with challenges, you can prove it with a multiplicity of ways. And when you test adding that to your marketing, whether it's your ad, whether it's your presentation, your salespeople, your website, normally, not always, but normally it will have an enhancement. And if the enhancement's only 10 or 15%, and you have 21 to 30 or 50 of those capabilities in your business, do you see what it means? Are you laughing at me? Are you excited? You, the one with the JT Fox yellow tie. Is this exciting? Okay, good. I just want to, my zipper's not down, is it? Okay. All right. Endorsement. Long ago, they found out that by adding someone like a prominent person or someone who you didn't even know, but their either current or past job or role was prominent, could double or triple the credibility and thus the response and thus the trust factor in what you do. Years ago, when I was young, John Ritter, who's dead now, from Three's Company, there was a company selling courses on how to get your child an A, and they were struggling. And they brought him in, and they changed nothing. Same script, just him, and it tripled. Tony Robbins started because Fran Tarkenton, those of you who are old enough, football and an entrepreneur, I know him, he's a very, very good friend, was coming out of 3 different shows. They'd been in 2 Super Bowls. He was popular as could be, credible as can be, honorable as can be, and he became the host for Tony Robbins' first show. That's what made the thing work. It wasn't Tony Robbins' charisma, although he had it. It was that they attached it to this credibility. You can do the same thing locally, regionally, nationally, with existing, JT does it with the people he brings, but they don't have to be people who are known. They can be the retired head of financial planning for a retirement group or a financial group or a hospital group or anybody. You got the world's your oyster. Okay, I always get this question. I'm working so hard, I can't get ahead. My analogy, and I wish all this was original, I'm a distillation of being influenced by brighter people than I. And by the way, there's a great lesson that I want to take, because I know that JT does a lot of masterminds, and there's a great quote that I really believe. If you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room, period. So are you digging a hole right now, and when you get stressed or when you know what to do, you dig faster and deeper and faster and deeper and faster and deeper and faster and deeper? If that is you in any kind of a metaphoric way, there's questions to ask. First of all, should you be digging a hole? Second of all, should you be digging the hole there? Why are you digging the hole? Third of all, should you be digging the hole and not someone else? Third of all, should you be digging that hole with the tool you're using or with a more powerful tool? And why are you digging the hole? Now, I'm going to introduce another thought, and I'm going to screw up my PowerPoint, but that's okay. So I used to do a lot of seminars. I don't anymore. I do mostly just private client work. But at our seminars, we had lots of interesting people. One man was an effectiveness coach for Silicon Valley. And we brought him on stage. He was an attendee. And we said, okay, give us in 10 minutes the most powerful lesson anybody can have, whether they're a one-man or woman business or a huge one, that will increase their productivity at least 40%. Okay. He said, figure out the 3 most important things your business is paying you to do for them, and then break those 3 things into as many I'm massively about sub-elements and how they perform, and then evaluate those sub-elements on 3 criteria: competency, relevancy, and passion. He said, you might be the very best person at auditing time cards, but is that really the highest and best use of your 24/7? Competency. You might be terrible and have to work your ass off to get to mediocrity. A lot of energy, a lot of effort. Going from crappy, excuse my vulgarity, to mediocrity is a linear activity. Don't you want to stay up here in the geometric zone? Everything I'm all about is geometric, exponential, orders of magnitude improvement for the same effort, time, etc. And you can't do that if you're wasting time on things where you're putting full out to be mediocre. Next is passion. You may be okay at it, but you're so dispassionate that you're spending enormous emotional energy. Keep this in mind. Unless you are a miracle worker, you don't have more than 24/7. You don't have more than 365? You don't have, it's all you got. How you use it. Most of you don't have a lot more capital than your competitors, so you got to use, you're paid to think. You're paid to think better than other people. You're paid to think more strategic. You're paid to think more critical. You're paid to think on a more leverageable way. And if you don't understand that, shame on you. Okay, now you're ready for my market drivers. I'm going to do this a little backwards. I'm going to give you the crescendo at the end, unless I get cut off. But I'm going to give you a bunch of J. Abraham geometric, exponential impact factors that if you change one of them, it'll improve the performance of your business. If you change all of them, it's unimaginable how profound the business can grow, okay? So market drivers. First, marketing. You change your marketing, you change your results. Most people are terrible marketers. Most people don't measure what they're doing. Most people don't have any understanding of the science behind marketing. Most people don't understand different markets, different propositions, different headlines, different calls to action, different credibilities, different ways to take the risk out of the transaction for the intended prospect. Will have a totally different results. Most people don't even know how to measure what to measure. Change your message, change your results, change the medium, it can change the results, change the position, can change the results, change the approach, change the results, change the risk reversal, change the credibility, change the response you ask people to make. One could be come in, the other can be ask for this, go to our website, register. One can be will come to you. One can be will send you a 1-month supply gratis. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it, other than the way you and the majority of your business probably does it. Because all you know is normally what you've either learned by being in the industry or learned by observing the industry. I basically, and we'll get to this, use funnel vision. Funnel vision is adapting, adopting, borrowing success principles, approaches, sources, marketing, strategic business models from all kinds of other industries and introducing them to a market that doesn't know it, because a concept that is as common as dirt in one industry can have the power, the impact, the profitability, the preemptability, meaning you can dominate so nobody else can even get close to you and your positioning, the preeminence, meaning you loft and hurl yourself and propel yourself to a stature that's outrageous, of an atom bomb if you're the first and the only one to use it or multiple combinations, but you can't use it if you don't know it. Howard Ruffer I talked about. Chase Ravel became the advocate for the aspiring entrepreneur, and he became an investigative detective who figured out who's making a bundle, how they're doing it, how you can do it too. We had a newsletter one time. It was written by a man we called Mr. X. He was a self-styled citizen of the world, sort of like the world's most interesting man that hung with everybody, got information from everybody, couldn't reveal he was real, couldn't reveal his identity because it would breach his access, and it was massively exciting. When we started, I started in the gold business, and they were running ads in the Wall Street Journal and ads in Barron's, and they were very ineffective. Instead, I found all the financial newsletters who were advocating hard assets, conservative investment, balanced portfolio, and we became the recommended provider. We became part of their welcome kit. We even financed some of their growth because we analyzed that their subscribers were great buyers for us, and we changed our model. When I got into the market, everybody was doing seminars for $500 and they were running ads. I did seminars for $15,000 30 years ago, and I never ran ads except if they were on a result basis, and they were never an ad. They were 18 pages we would run in flights, and we always worked out deals where we paid them for the results that resulted from them. But what I did instead is I went to the Tony Robbinses, I went to the Success magazines, I went to the Nightingale Conants, I went to the J.T. Foxes, and I got them to tell everybody how great I was and how wonderful I was, because I was, and I mean that not arrogantly, but clinically. At what I did, I was world class, and I'd made these people millions and millions of dollars. And I had the first seminar we ever did, we had 350 people at $15,000 and an out-of-pocket investment of $10,000 that covered just the cost of paying to send a letter to their list. That's what you can do. Change your model, and you can change basically everything you do. We had a heating and air conditioning company. We just changed their model to a very low price, very not hypey, very, very genuine tune-up they lost money on. And they lost money because upon analyzing and correlating, sorry, my voice, the dynamics, 80% of the people that had a tune-up had a problem, a real, genuine problem, not a makeshift problem, not a blue suede shoe problem, but a problem, whether the bearings were out or the filter was bad or this was bad or that was bad. And the average, if they went out to 10, 8 would have a problem worth $800. So we could easily lose $20 on 10, because every time we lost 20, we're making 800 at about a 3-time margin on 8. So 24 is a pretty good yield, 2,400 for a $200 investment, don't you think, investors? But you can't do that if you don't understand it. Am I going too fast? Interesting, isn't it? See, I've never done this before, so it's sort of fun for me because I'm sort of trying to put it all together as I go. Strategy. You change your strategy, you change your results. Wait 1 second, because I'll try to get my voice a little better. By the way, most people are not strategic. They are tactical as can be. An activity is not a strategy. A strategy is the big, long-term game plan you're playing for forever. A tactic is nothing more than the activity you use to deploy, advance, and enhance that. I got it at Whole Foods. It's supposed to help. Let's see. As I've gotten older, my voice has gotten weaker because I talked and consulted so much. So most people don't even have a strategy. They're static, they're tactical, they're episodic. Your strategy is not opening a store in a shopping mall. Your strategy is not basically setting a salesman out that isn't trained in consultative selling. Your strategy is not having an advantage that distinguishes and differentiates you. Your strategy is not having a process that identifies the highest probability market, reaches them in the most impactful way, evokes them to respond to you, and migrates or converts that to a sale. And then if your model is correct, a resell and a resell and a resell, and when you have nothing else to sell them because you've invested so much in the relationship, finding complementary products or services to sell. A strategy is a really well thought out, integrated process that drives superior performance against competition. Colonial Penn, I told you, their strategy was grow organizations. My seminar business was hilarious. We would go to a list, and our first strategy was to sell a $50,000 one-day consult. We would have the endorsers send out a letter, and we would sell one or two. But most people would be shocked at $50,000 per day. I'm talking 30 years ago. Then we'd go behind, and it would say, truthfully, a lot of people were provoked but couldn't possibly comprehend or afford or be willing to pay it, but they thought, God, somebody can get that. It must be interesting. Is there any way I can get access affordably? And we talked to him. He said, sure. Economies of scale. If you guys want to pay $5,000, you can come. If you come in group, enough group. I don't even care if you pay, as you profit in the future. And we were able to get thousands of people in events. Well, 1,000 in an event with that model. Then we'd take those people off, and we'd go to the people who didn't respond, and we'd say, God, so many people were still interested, but that didn't work, either their budget or their schedule or their credulity. They were incredulous about it. So you want a home study for 40% of that on great terms? And when we're done, we took them off, and we offered them a $400 entry level. Then we did it again. Sometimes we did it backward, but we had a model that was very powerful. Did $250 million with almost zero external marketing. I had a dental supply company, and everyone was competing on the same basic plan. Will save you a few cents. We didn't do that. If dentists bought $500 or more a month from us, we gave the dentist access to expertise. We had the top dental accountant we retained. We had the top management consultant. We had the top practice builders, on and on. And we invested in their business. I have a Japanese driving school in Japan, and if you look at the numbers in Japan, half the people that get a license never use it. It's a badge of courage, sort of, I got a license. Half the people that use it don't buy a car. They rent cars on the weekends to go away or on holidays when they ever travel. So we use those two factors to change our model. Factor one is now with our offer, everyone else is offering courses. We give you 4 separate certificates to rent a car when you graduate from our course. But that's not our real business model now. We've got satellite offices opening in all of our facilities to be rental companies, because that's forever. So we just want to get as many people, to get their license, because 1/4 are going to be clients of ours forever. That makes sense, doesn't it? And that kind of business is a lot more sellable than a driving school for a lot higher multiple, but it takes critical thinking. Isn't this fun? I have a candy company in China, and I'll give them credit. They came to 5 or 6 of my seminars, and they did this themselves. But about a year ago, I was in China, and I go to Shanghai and Beijing a lot because I like the entrepreneurial focus. They're actually very passionate. The only advantage we have over them in Latin America and the BRICS nations is that we are better critical thinkers, because their educational system is rote training. It's not critical thinking. They just do memorization. So this guy attended all my programs. They were in the candy business. They were number 3 or 4. And in China, the candy business is different. They're not all sold at a drugstore or a grocery. There's 20,000 candy stores, little private mom and pop stores. This guy got really smart. He went to the candy stores and he said, look, because this is something I teach, reason why. There's a reason why everything, a reason why I should buy from you, reason why you shouldn't, reason why you should listen to me. It's called $9 billion of profits that are documented to my name. Reason why your competitors may outsell, outmarket, attract you, that if you don't know what it is, you're not going to compete against it, or you're not going to basically counter program. This guy went to the candy stores and said, look, we realize that everyone is saying, buy my candy from me, but they don't have the because. They just want the business. They want the profit. We have a proposition. We're going to help grow your candy business for you. Because he learned all my stuff. If we grow your candy business, we know that at very least, we'll get more sales, because your volume will grow, and even we only get our 20%. But we'd like to hope you'll reward us. So they planted the subliminal seed by giving us a lot more, because we earned it, because we really invested in you. And that got them to number 1, and Hershey's just bought them for $500 million. That's the difference of thinking differently. Motorcycle manufacturer, it's a classic J. Bram story, but I had a motorcycle manufacturer in China again. He came up one day, we were doing talks about relational capital, and he said, pardon me, Jay, The banks won't lend money to a small business like ours. I said, well, what kind of business and why do you want the money? Because we're a motorcycle manufacturer. We can get capital. I would go all over Asia, open up factories, sales offices, get distributors. I said, you're making this too hard. Find a non-competitive, complementary business somewhere in Asia that has everything you want, but is underutilized. Somebody's got manufacturing, not using a second shift. Somebody has distribution, not utilizing it. Somebody has retail, not utilizing it. I came back less than a year later. This guy comes to the mic and he's beaming. He goes, I did what you said. Through translation, he said that. So he may not have really said that. That's what I heard. And he said, we went to Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. We found a lawnmower manufacturer who had an unused second shift, all the equipment. I had to go there with the tools and dies. Those of you who don't know what they are, they're the manufacturing components that tell you what the machines make. They already had salespeople. They already had lawnmower dealers in 8 countries. We both made $10 million in the first year. That's what thinking differently can be. Isn't this exciting? Is it giving you some ideas about your own business or yourself or staying in whatever you're doing? J.W. Gibson, one of the first companies I worked for, his concept, he had massive manufacturing of chemicals, and he realized that chemicals could be mixed and just cleaned out, and you could use it for all kinds of things. So he bought old line, 3rd generation family businesses. Anybody who knows anything about generational businesses, by about the 3rd generation, you know, the kids and the relatives are getting it. They don't care about it. They just want to milk it. They don't really have the passion that the founder had. Business is going downhill normally if it's a closely owned, that they're not even fully utilizing equipment, facilities. My guy would buy it on an option before he closed. He would already pre-sell the building. He would sell the equipment. He would bring it all there because he had all this capacity he wasn't using. He had all this sales distribution all over. He'd put it through everything, and he'd make a profit on the purchase itself, and he'd make a huge profit by putting it through his distribution, but that was a different model. Carnival Cruise, when they first started, they had no money, and they had their first boat that they couldn't even afford to paint on both sides. True story. My friend did all their marketing. They would have to pull it in on the painted side because they couldn't afford it. I mean, it cost like $50,000 to paint it. They had all these what do they call it? What's a room on a boat called? Cabin that were unfilled. But it had a value of, I don't know, $400 a week. So 2 weeks is $800. So they traded. They created value they could use in exchange for value they needed. They went to radio stations, television stations, and they traded it for advertising. They went to providers of carpet, providers of food, and they traded it to them to give as bonuses, Christmas bonuses, give it to their vendors, and they built the whole business without using cash in the beginning. Isn't that interesting? If you think about hotels, if you think about airlines, if you think about boats, anybody who's got a diminishing asset that has value, if this hotel, I mean, it's probably packed because you're here. Tomorrow, if you leave, they might have 30% empty. 30% of 800 rooms, 240 rooms at $150, 240 times 150 is whatever. They've got that much burning buying power they could trade for things. I mean, my wife drives a Range Rover Supercharger. It cost me 2 days. She has a Porsche convertible, cost me 2 days of time. We did our whole backyard once. It cost me a speech at a convention for the company that was a supplier of outdoor merchandise. Pretty cool. I can go on and on and on, but I'm running out of time. ICEOut, our model was very simple. We didn't have marketing money to spend, but we analyzed that every time we got, and I'm giving you numbers, it may be off if you've heard it before, but the essence is the same. I have so many success stories I don't remember. Every time they got 10 new buyers of the first jar for $3, 8 would buy over and over and over again every month because there was no cure for arthritis, bursitis, rheumatism. So he had no money allocated to spend, but he wanted me to go to radio stations, television stations, and persuade them to run ads and let them keep 100% of the money. Our deal was we only make money on the back end and will not get a resale unless it over-delivers what we say and unless we send the product out promptly. $3 wasn't motivating. I was very depressed. But when we went back with $3.45, that was because we were giving them more money than the front end. In truth, every time we got 8 buyers who bought $3, every time we got 10, they bought $3, it cost us 55 cents to send it out. So 55 times 10, $5.50 loss plus the 45 cents. So about $10 loss got us 8 buyers who bought every month forever at least $3. And we offered them distributorship, and a fourth of them bought multiple bottles each time for their friends. And we offered them other products, but nobody would know that if you don't analyze it. We could have gone to the bank and borrowed money at usurious rates. And I'll tell you something very funny, by the way. I just did real estate agents. Anybody a real estate agent? We gave them all these marketing things to do, and they said, "What do I mean money?" And I said, well, if you analyze the yield, and the yield is thousands of percent annually for the money up front, you think you might get an investor to put the money up for a guaranteed interest and a piece of the upside? Just a different way of thinking. Amusement park. I had an amusement park once that was below a theme restaurant and recreational pier in Redondo Beach. And we did an experiment, and it was mind-blowing. We found out that the average family spent, and I can't remember now, it was $5 or $10 in cash when they came down. We found out then when we gave all of the balloon people and the hot dog vendors and the t-shirt people certificates they could give away worth 2 free redemptions, 2 quarters, that the average redemption made us $10. So we gave everybody certificates all up and down so that people were coming and redeeming them all day long. And we did millions of dollars, but you can't do that if you don't see correlations. Isn't this exciting, Mike and Doug? Aren't you glad you're in the front row and you get to see my tie up close? I'm trying to sell my line to JT. It's the premium line. I did something hilarious one time. Years ago, Bob Allen and Mark Victor Hansen had this wild idea for a book called Cracking the Millionaire Code. And they called me and said, okay, Jay, you got this challenge. I only have 8 minutes. We're not going to get through my PowerPoint. You got 2 hours to tell people with no money, no product, no experience, no understanding how they can make $1 million a year from scratch. And I said, you got to be kidding. And they said, no, really do it. And I did. I said, all you got to do is go to the big searches on Google or Yahoo or Bing or whoever and see where there's arbitrage. And arbitrage means there's going to be a lot of people who have a book, but they don't have the back end. They don't have a seminar business or they don't have a consulting business. There are going to be people that have a consulting business, they don't have a book. There's going to be all this disconnect. And all you have to do is put the two together and put yourself in the toll position. There were 300 people, almost as many as here in that room. 299 of the 300 didn't believe it was possible, and they were right. One did, and she made $1.6 million in 6 months just doing it. Very interesting. I had a friend who was one of the forerunners in building telemarketing businesses for in-call. And he would go to companies, and his proposition was very simple. He would look at companies, and most of them in the beginning were order takers. They weren't sales makers. And he'd say, we'll metric out, we'll quantify whatever your people are averaging out. If you're doing 50 grand a week, a month, it's yours. I want nothing. I just want half of the increase we create. And he made hundreds of thousands of dollars a month because he had salespeople. He understood the psychology of consultative selling. Very cool. I worked for a company that generated 6 million leads in 1 year, 6 million a year, approximately, for financial people, for Encyclopedia Britannica, for high-priced custom bed and chair companies, a broad spectrum. And our deal was don't pay for advertising, pay for results. They would tell us what they were paying for a lead, and we would play arbitrage. We could go out and we could buy media better. We could create ads that were more powerful. We could get access to segments of databases that were more responsive, and we made the arbitrage, and we made millions of dollars. I had a medical delivery company once, and medical delivery is very time critical because you got a urine sample or a blood sample, and it can't wait too often. But when they're done, they're deadheaded, they're empty. So we went to a bunch of non-critical delivery services, and we proposed to them that they eliminate their drivers and their equipment and let us do it for half of the revenue because their cost just went to nothing. And we built a whole business on the back end. Isn't this interesting? We went to, I had a client that was a restaurant one time, very cool restaurant, but they were in rural areas, and they decided to open a very significant one on the east or the west side of Boston. I don't remember, but they had a finite marketing budget, like $400,000 or $500,000. It wasn't enough to make a big difference, and worse than that, 90% of any marketing they did in citywide media would have been a waste because people on the south side aren't going to come to the east side and vice versa. So we rethought critically the problem. We decided, who do we really want? We want the influencers in the neighborhood, right? So we made a list of all the influencers in the neighborhood. And we had sophisticated influencers and non-sophisticated. Woman, man who owns the nail salon, hairdressers, attorneys, doctors. We then hired a bunch of very attractive young men and women, and we gave them titles of assistant manager. And we realized that $400,000 paid at full retail for advertising would be dissipated very quickly. But $400 paying for just food cost for meals would buy, who's a restaurant here? Anybody? What's $400 at real cost going to buy you in food at retail? What's the multiple? So I just basically increased my marketing allocation to 800,000, didn't I? Or excuse me, to 2 million, right? And what we did was we went to these people and we had a very simple, we tested it, proposition. We said, we don't want to wait for you to come to us to have dinner, for you to see what we're all about, because we know if you have a great experience that you'll tell other people you'll come back. So we want to invest in you. And we gave them a certificate for lunch, dinner, their choice for two, not counting drinks, not counting taxes and tips. And we built a multi-million-dollar business that way. Now, is this giving you a little bit of a clarity that you can look at your business a little bit different? Yes? Okay, I got 250 before JT swoops in with all his ties. Okay. We built a huge regional leather cleaning business. A dry cleaning company I worked for went to all these independent dry cleaners, and we offered them leather and suede cleaning. Now, anybody in the dry cleaning business, maybe not today, but back then, leather or suede cleaning was about 10 times more profitable. Same equipment, just had to add some oils to keep the garment supple, and you couldn't mix it. Very, very profitable. We were building routes. And the way we built it was we said, we will build you your business. We provided them with signage. We provided them with package inserts to put on their packages that went out, their clothes that talked about leather and dry cleaning. We did spiff money to their people. We did basically specials, and we built millions and millions of dollars doing that. Well, I've really gone a long way. I'm coming to the third of my 9 marketing drivers. What can I say? Capital. Capital is all kinds of things. Financial capital, intellectual capital, relational capital. But if you don't understand what it is and you don't understand how it's performing, you can't leverage it up. How can you do it? I just made yesterday, I'm sure there's a lot more ways, you can buy better. One time, for example, there was a newsletter that ran full-page ads in major newspapers back before newspapers were so bad, and the guy bought terribly. And he would break even on his newsletter. So he charged $50 for a newsletter. If he bought a $50,000 ad He would get basically whatever 50 is in $50 into 50, 1,000 respondents. I made a deal with him that I would provide the ad to just keep all the money, because I could buy what was called standby for 25% of retail. I just didn't know what day it would run. So the ad that would break even for him made me 75% of cost. So I bought all the ads I could. But you have to know, you can buy better. You can pay only for results. I've done that with lots of different publications, lots of different distribution channels, lots of different media. You can pay on a guarantee. There was a large carpet company for many years that would go to radio stations, and they would say, we'll send you a check right now, be a cashier's check. Run ads whenever you have unsold time, and we will make specials, and we will keep track of it. And as long as we can sell carpet for whatever their allowable cost, and all of you need to understand allowable cost, because you all have an allowable cost for different products or services or from different sources. And if you don't know what they are, you can't really maximize your investment, not your expenditure, but your investment. You can get vendors to pay for it. When I was in the gold business, we got the gold providers to pay for it. When I've been in the retail, we would go to alternative vendors that wanted our business and get them to pay for our ads, or pay to hire salespeople, or pay part of our rent. I mean, it's only whatever the limitations of your creativity are. Are you coming up to take me off? No, not yet? Okay, all right, fine. You can convert expenses to results by taking things you're spending time and money on and go and get people to do it for you on a per transaction, or a share of the profit, or an interest in either the client that comes from it, the buyer, or the product line. We've done that all the time. You can get experts to not charge you fees, but get paid in terms of a share of either the productivity, the profitability, the savings. There have been huge companies like that. That's how I made all my money. I would get 25% of the increased profit, or 50% of the new revenue streams I could create, and I made tens of millions of dollars. A friend of mine had a company they ran that would go and they would audit payables to see if you double paid, and they would get 50% of the savings. Utility auditors do the same. I had another client that did it for hospitals. If they could find, a lot of hospitals have contracts that are leases, and they automatically renew if they don't stop them, and they're so busy, and this company would come in and they would do an audit and an analysis, and they would figure all these things they could save on, and they would get 50% of the saving for 2 years. You can give people equity in exchange for capital in a division, in a market, in ads, in paying for media, for anything you want. You can acquire the rights to processes. If you find independent people in other parts of the world, the country, or you find people in related but not competitive businesses who have mastered marketing, advertising, selling, distribution, inventory control, logistics, you can pay them to license their expertise, and that can make your business much more productive. You can become the strategic front end. We just did a deal with a company that sells online disseminated foreign language courses, and they have up to 5 different categories. And I have a client that has on-site residence training that's very expensive in 4 countries in South America, and the average person buys 2 to 3 weeks. So we're giving a first basic week free as a bonus to them, and they're giving it to everybody. And we've done experiments and extrapolation on what redemption and upgrade will be. Am I being too esoteric for you guys? Isn't this interesting? It's a different way of thinking.